Well, they should be taking her back to the office. All right, is that everybody? Okay, wow, it's just me and the men this morning. Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. I'm Congresswoman Linda Sanchez. I'm the ranking member on the Trade Subcommittee, and today I stand with my knowledgeable and experienced colleagues from the Ways and Means Committee because we are introducing the Stopping a Rogue President on Trade Act. That is a bill that is designed to put an end to the chaos that we've seen under President Trump. The Constitution is abundantly clear. Congress has the authority and the responsibility to regulate trade, and it's time for us to step up and fulfill that duty. Now, over the years, Congress has granted the president certain trade powers, and those powers were meant to deliver needed relief, to build up domestic industries, or to be used in emergencies or for our national security. But President Trump has gone rogue and is abusing these powers in ways that we have never seen before. He's using them as corrupt extortion tools to bully other countries, diminish U.S. global leadership, and ultimately isolate the United States and put our national security at risk. Since taking office, he has done nothing but inject turmoil into our trade discussions. He's constantly threatening, imposing, or lifting tariffs on a whim, often just in a tweet. And this has created real havoc in our economy in the United States. Businesses need predictability in order to thrive. Families need to be able to budget for retirement or sending their kid to college or when it's time to buy a new car. But the Trump chaos is paralyzing these investments. It's freezing hiring and business planning. Families right now don't know which way to turn. Since his so-called Liberation Day, American families have become increasingly nervous about rising costs and the consequences that they will face as a result of a global trade war. Small businesses are struggling to keep up with the instability, and they're unsure of how to plan or invest for the future. And my colleagues and I have heard from many small businesses in our districts. How will a small business owner relying on one or two suppliers from an affected tariff country know where to move production to avoid tariffs that will cripple the business? None of our trading partners are safe, and there is no clarity from the president about what may come next. I cannot underscore this enough. Trump's trade agenda, including the latest tariff policy, has all been done behind closed doors. And it makes one wonder, what is there to hide? Backroom deals are corrupt and they are anti-democratic. He is tanking America's global leadership, which will take decades to repair, all while upending the stability that American businesses rely on. There's no seeming end to the chaos and lack of predictability coming from this administration. And I think the best example of that was what happened yesterday when the Ways and Means Committee had USTR Greer in front of the committee. In the middle of the hearing with Trade Representative Greer, President Trump posted on Truth Social that he was pausing tariffs for 90 days. His own trade representative was caught completely off guard right in the middle of a congressional hearing. So who is advising the president on trade if it's not the U.S. Trade Representative confirmed by Congress to do that very task? Who is the president listening to? Why is he making these decisions without consulting Congress, the people's house? I'm also extremely concerned about market manipulation. Donald Trump posted on Truth Social at 9:37 a.m. that this is a great time to buy. DJ Take T. 3.5 hours later, he announced that he would pause the tariffs, causing the stock market to go haywire. It's hard to imagine on its face that the president didn't break myriad laws with those tweets. Meanwhile, the president's new chief ethics officer is on the Hill trying to defend the president's tariffs and getting pantsed by the president in front of the entire country on TV. Our bill would once and for all bring order and stability to this mess. The bill does three principal things. First, it ends the global tariffs that President Trump imposed on April 2nd, permanently, not just for a to-be-seen 90-day pause. These include the baseline 10% tariff on all countries and the massive tariff hikes on nearly 60 trading partners, all of which was based on a bogus and made-up formula. Instead, our bill would permanently return most tariff rates to where they were before this tariff spree. Trump's 90-day pause is not enough to provide businesses with the certainty that they need in order to plan for the future. Second, the bill eliminates the tariffs that were imposed on Mexico and Canada. The USMCA, an agreement which Congress authorized, provides mechanisms to address trade disputes that we have with our closest neighbors. There is also the upcoming review of USMCA, in which we can determine whether or not we need to renegotiate certain terms of that agreement. The irony is that President Trump has an issue with the trade imbalances generated by that agreement, but he should take it up with the president who negotiated that bill, which is himself. Finally, our bill requires congressional approval for any new tariffs. As has been made all too clear recently, tariffs are too important to be left by the whims of any one person, especially when they can impact a large swath of American families and businesses. Congress must have a say in any decision that has such a substantive effect on the American people. The bottom line is simple. Congress has constitutional authority over tariffs, and it's time that we use it. Any decision about tariffs should be made with transparency, oversight, and accountability. Now, it's my pleasure to pass the microphone over to the ranking member of the Ways and Means Committee, Richie Neal.
Great job, Linda. This is solid legislation. The steady erosion of congressional authority as it relates to trade practices is out of hand, and it's because of the impulsive decision-making that we're witnessing. At 1:18 yesterday, it was announced that we were going to pause the tariffs. Yesterday, the argument was also that the idea of consultation meant engagement. Let me tell you what the consultation meant. A phone call from USTR saying they were going to do the following. So they're using a 1977 law in 302, 201 for the purpose of suggesting that these are national emergencies. USMCA was not a national emergency. We reached an accord after months of daily negotiating. The president at the time, the same president we have now, suggested that it was the best trade deal in history. A week ago, it's the worst trade deal in history. All an excuse to suggest that one person using tweets can put together policy. So I got to tell you, I've seen a lot over my years here, but yesterday's performance, where the entire office of the USTR is not informed of what's coming, USMCA was a good agreement. These agreements over many, many years, you have a chance to review, as Linda said. So next year, we're supposed to review USMCA. That's the appropriate time to make the changes in deliberations. In Canada, I met with Prime Minister Trudeau. We negotiated. In Mexico, I met with President Lopez Obrador. We negotiated. No negotiation is everything you want, but you come to understand there is some give and take. And what we're witnessing here, again, is this sort of notion that whatever is said at the White House is right about trade. Congress is a full partner in the trade discussions and negotiations, and that's why I think Linda Sanchez's legislation today is really important, and the timeliness of it couldn't be any better.
Thank you. All right. Yes, and now it's my pleasure to call to the microphone senior member of the Ways and Means Committee and the ranking member of the Health Subcommittee, Lloyd Doggett.
Thank you, Linda, for your leadership on this. While the pause yesterday was welcome news to many, it left in place some very high tariffs, and with China, some extraordinarily exorbitant tariffs. And so Americans, rather than seeing prices going drastically down, whether it's going to get a cup of coffee, whether it's buying a pair of shoes, whether it's planning on toys for holidays or for a birthday party, Americans will face ever-rising prices. It's not only the tariff level, but it is the uncertainty around a whimsical president. It's a tariff level that businesses can never be sure that they can invest because they don't know what the price of the inputs that they will be getting will be costing, what they'll be costing next week, next month, or this afternoon. And that's not a way to move forward. It's one of the reasons that when I surveyed or asked the Austin Regional Manufacturers Association in my hometown to survey their members, they reported that almost half their members will be reducing hiring as a result of this. So this has ramifications throughout our economy. It's the reason that I think that President Trump is kind of a one-man crusade for a recession, because his policies mean higher prices, less employment, and less business investment. And I think Congresswoman Sanchez's bill seeks to stop the madness. It reclaims the constitutional authority of this Congress on trade. It repeals the false national emergency that the president used, particularly outrageous relative to our northern partner and longtime ally, where more fentanyl is going from the U.S. to Canada than is coming from Canada into the U.S. It puts a stop to the kind of effort that has been made against some of our closest allies, the United Kingdom, Australia, with whom we have a free trade agreement, and yet these tariffs were imposed on them despite the fact that we have not a deficit but a surplus in trade with them already. Just before these tariffs were announced, I visited with the economics minister of one of countries that we've had a long time strong relationship with. That minister came here to Washington, met with some of the same USTR members that with the administration that didn't know what was going on yesterday, and asked essentially, what can we do to avoid a trade war with you? What steps can we take? And that person was told absolutely nothing, because President Trump is intent on tariffs for all, just don't complain. Well, we have plenty of reason as Americans to complain now. Normally, you negotiate before a war, not after it. And I'm pleased that Congresswoman Sanchez is our leader on the Trade Subcommittee, is taking this step, and pleased to join her. And welcome a great leader on our committee and in our caucus who spoke so effectively yesterday on these trade matters, Susan Delbeni.
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank this incredible group of lawmakers for their leadership in defense of our economy and our Constitution. We're here today united behind this legislation that once again makes it very, very clear that the president has to come to Congress before imposing sweeping tariffs. And let's be clear, what he's done is sweeping. He can't pretend to be king and on a whim issue sweeping tariffs, jack up the costs on millions of families, and risk sending our economy into recession. And Trump and Republicans promised to lower prices for families on day one. And that's a broken promise, and they're breaking it over and over again. They are making prices rise for families and making it unaffordable. For too long, we've seen Congress not stand up for its role on trade and tariff authorities. And we're seeing the extreme consequences from this president. An erratic, unchecked presidents putting tariffs on one minute, taking them away on the other, providing uncertainty over and over again. And we know businesses, families hate uncertainty. I heard from a business in my district, they said they're being tariffed out of business. And what he meant was it was the tariffs, but it was the uncertainty. Folks didn't think, nothing that he was doing, his business was doing fine, but international customers just couldn't be sure what the U.S. environment was going to be like, whether or not there were going to be tariffs on products, and they were looking for places where they would find more stability. That's all a result of Donald Trump's policies, and frankly, Republicans refuse to do nothing about it. Chaos is damaging, and it's clear that the president has no plans, no goals, which provides even more uncertainty. And as was mentioned when we were meeting with Ambassador Greer, the trade ambassador yesterday, he didn't even know what the policy was. People don't know what he's going to do beforehand or what policy might be. There's no consultation. There's no plan. There's no clarity of what they want to see going forward. So Congress has an important role to play. We together have an important role to play. It's critical that we use our constitutional power. Republicans could end this trade war by working with us right now with a simple vote, and yet they continue to avoid. They're afraid of taking a vote, and they take away our ability to have a vote, as we saw yesterday in the rules package. So I want to thank everyone here for their partnership, and I want to introduce my colleague who's been a strong leader on the trade subcommittee from the state of California, Jimmy Panetta.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks, Ranking Member Neal. And of course, thanks to Ranking Member Sanchez. Obviously, I'm very proud to be here today. I'm proud to be on the Ways and Means Committee, proud to be on the Ways and Means Trade Subcommittee. But I'm definitely proud of our performance yesterday on the Democratic side and our work during the hearing with Ambassador Greer, in which we were able, it's kind of easy to a certain extent, to make apparent how damaging, how destructive, how dumb Trump's tariffs are, not just to our economy, but to our global economy, not just to our financial security, but also to our national security. It would be, if these tariffs are imposed, the largest self-inflicted wound to our economy in our history. And so I'm glad that the president put a pause to the implementation of some of these tariffs, but clearly it's not over. It's not over because we have a president guided by his simplified scorecard thinking when it comes to trade and trade deficits and his 40-year fetish for tariffs. Now, it's demonstrated that that attitude is demonstrated in that the authority that he's using with IEEPA. Now, past presidents have used IEEPA, but only for sanctions and to freeze assets. Never to impose tariffs until President Trump. And that's why we're here today. That's why Representative Sanchez authored this bill and why we support this legislation, to reclaim congressional authority over tariffs, to take back our power that's granted to Congress under Article 1, Section 8, Clause 3 in the United States Constitution. This is about standing up to President Trump, to taking back our power and to stopping these types of tariffs that Trump will put in place. It's about reclaiming congressional authority, about members of Congress, yes, on the Democratic side, but letting the Republicans know they need to step up as well when it comes to providing and ensuring that the American public have faith in this institution to do what's right. Do what's right when it comes to our economy, when it comes to working families, and when it comes to trade. That's why we're here today. Look, I told you I was proud to be a part of this committee, and I was never as proud as when my colleague, Stephen Horsford, had the opportunity yesterday to catch Ambassador Greer completely off guard after the rug got completely taken out from underneath him and basically put him in the position that he deserved to be in, unfortunately for him. And so I'm proud today to introduce to you Stephen Horsford.
Thank you. Well, look, good morning. I went into Ways and Means Committee yesterday planning to ask the U.S. Trade Representative about the Trump tariff taxes and their impact on the hardworking people in Nevada and our tourism economy that's being impacted by this administration's policies, not only on trade and tariffs, but also lack of visas for international travelers. Much to all of our surprise, we watched as the trade rep learned in real time that the president had just pulled the rug out from under him. You know, I almost had a bit of empathy for him. But then I thought about the millions of Americans whose retirement, whose health savings accounts, whose savings for their children going to college had all been put in jeopardy. The look on his face said it all. Trump's billionaire friends like Elon Musk complained, Trump blinked, and the poor trade rep was on the hot seat. Given the shocking change in trade policy, I went on to ask why the trade rep hesitated to share this information. He spittered, he spattered, and he sheepishly claimed that he knew all along, while also saying he hadn't spoken to President Trump about it. So let's make sure we're all tracking. The trade representative hadn't spoken to the President of the United States about a global reordering of trade, and the President is out there announcing it on a post? Yeah, WTF. Who's in charge? Now, I fundamentally believe this shows the amateur hour of this administration. And that is why I commend Ranking Member Sanchez under the leadership of Chairman Neal for bringing this necessary legislation, and all of my colleagues, because the president chose to take actions that he didn't even have the authority to take from the beginning. He put our economy in disarray and near collapse. We have small businesses and American families who are concerned about their well-beings, people's retirements, their health savings accounts, 529 accounts went down in value because of the illegal actions of this administration. We have people who are planning to send their kids to college this fall, and we have people who are retiring whose benefits have declined. What about them, Mr. President? Ambassador Greer claimed this wasn't market manipulation. Are you kidding me? If it was a plan, if this was always a plan, then how is it not market manipulation? A bunch of billionaires just got richer and the American people got screwed. Meanwhile, the speaker is rushing today to put a budget reconciliation to a vote that would cause the biggest tax cut for billionaires and big corporations on the backs of the American people. That's what's up. That is the effect of these compounding decisions by this administration. So I'm proud to join with Representative Terry Sewell, the ranking member of Oversight, to lead a letter to hold this grifter administration accountable. I want to know who knew what about this policy change, and I want to know when they knew it. My constituents in Nevada and every single American deserves to understand the planning that went into this decision. This is not a game. This is real life. And that is why this legislation today is necessary, and a full inquiry into this process is necessary. So thank you to my colleagues on the Ways and Means Committee, and I will turn it back over to the ranking member, Ms. Sanchez.
We have a couple more speakers if we can fit in, but we have a hard stop at 10:30. But it's my pleasure to introduce someone who knows a lot about tariffs because he owned successful businesses and which were impacted by tariffs. My colleague, Don Beyer.
Look, we have to stop the madness. Look, this is simple. The president's drunk on power and taking a sledgehammer to our economy. I'm so grateful to Ranking Member Sanchez for her bill, and for once and future Chairman Neal for his always steadfast leadership. Look, I know firsthand tariffs are a massive increase on the American people. Tariffs are taxes paid by the American consumer. And this average, what they put out is going to cost the average family more than $4,000 by every measure. They're also seriously raising the risk of recession. And the power here belongs to Congress under the Constitution. The national emergency for fentanyl smuggling over the Canadian border that our government says is less than 1%. I just learned this morning that we export more to fentanyl to Canada inadvertently than comes in from them. And we know how Congress has to do this is to reassert our power. Because the time is so short, I just want to say that this is a very good bill. And I am thrilled that with the always strong Ways and Means Democrat leadership, we've got to stop the madness. This is the first step.
And to close it out, I'm pleased to introduce another outstanding member of the Ways and Means Committee, Mr. Schneider from Illinois.
Good morning, and I want to thank Congresswoman Sanchez and all of my Ways and Means colleagues. I am proud to support the Stopping a Rogue President on Trade Act. What we're really talking about here are the checks and balances conceived by the founders almost 240 years ago. As Representative Panetta noted, it's Article 1, Section 8, subparagraph 3, subsection 3. It talks about Congress having the authority, the responsibility for trade, for tariffs. But what we're really dealing with here, and it was noted earlier, we have a president who doesn't have a strategy, doesn't even really have a policy. He's issuing edicts on whimsy. He is coordinating apparently with his allies and cronies and supporters who, while people with retirement accounts, with 529 accounts, were put in a position of taking losses. And if they needed to take the money out of the market, they realized those losses. And at the indication of a president who said now's a good time to buy, folks sitting on a lot of cash, folks like Elon Musk, rushed into the market to make a huge, extraordinary profit. The checks and balances that the founders envisioned says Congress has a responsibility. There's a reason for it, though. If you look at the people who were on this stage, you look at the members of the Ways and Means Committee, you look at the Congress as a whole, each of us come from various and distinct districts representing the values and the priorities of those districts, but through deliberation and consideration, we should be coming up with thoughtful and considered policy. Instead, we have a president in the White House who on whimsy, who on whoever was the last person in the room talking to him, or simply just to exert his sense of power, he can swing one way to the other and inflict incredible harm on working families. The election in November was about lowering prices, about helping people not just make ends meet, but get ahead. What the president did this month, and he's done since taking office, is making life harder for hardworking Americans, for small businesses trying to figure out how to navigate a challenging economy. The president is hurting our economy, hurting families, hurting retirees, hurting our children's future. And that's why Congress has to retake its responsibilities and its prerogatives, and why we need to pass the Stopping a Rogue President on Trade Act. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Schneider. We are out of time, unfortunately, but I know that there are probably questions. You can direct them to Adam Russell in my office. We'll be happy to answer them. But we have to make space for the next press conference. Thank you so much.
Good job, Linda.